In Madison Square Garden, hatred didn't just build a rivalry, it built a legend. Every shove, every stare down, every deafening boo became fuel for Michael Jordan's fire. Against the New York Knicks, Jordan didn't just play basketball, he went to war, and he never lost. The lights dim. The roar of Madison Square Garden fades into an eerie silence. Every spectator, player, and coach knows one undeniable truth. This isn't just another basketball game. This is personal. At the heart of the storm stands Michael Jordan, eyes blazing, driven by a deep-seated hatred, forged in years of battle. On the opposite end, the New York Knicks, tough, unyielding, proud. To Jordan, they represented more than a rival. They embodied every obstacle he was determined to conquer. It was in this arena, under these lights, where moments became legends, and rivalries became wars. Each clash intensified the animosity, each game fueling a hatred that went beyond basketball, turning Madison Square Garden into Jordan's personal battleground. From iconic dunks and brutal fouls to heated confrontations and unforgettable trash talk, this rivalry transformed Michael Jordan into more than just a superstar. It turned him into a relentless force, driven by vengeance and the desire to humiliate those who dared to stand in his way. This wasn't merely sport, it was warfare disguised as basketball, a vendetta masked as competition. This was Michael Jordan versus the New York Knicks, the hatred that didn't just build a rivalry, but built a legend. The spark that ignited the rivalry. The seeds of the Jordan-Knicks rivalry were planted in the late 1980s, when Michael Jordan's rise to greatness collided with New York's vision of building a team tough enough to stop him. The Knicks, led by Patrick Ewing, were physical, intimidating, and unapologetically aggressive. Their identity revolved around defense and grit, exactly the kind of team that could challenge Jordan's finesse and scoring brilliance. Jordan's performances were already legendary. He was dazzling crowds with spectacular dunks and explosive scoring outbursts. But to the Knicks, he represented everything standing in their way. They didn't just want to beat him, they wanted to break him. Charles Oakley, once Jordan's teammate in Chicago and now his enforcer in New York, personified the Knicks' mindset: hard fouls, intimidation, and relentless pressure. Madison Square Garden became the epicenter of this budding feud. Knicks fans booed Jordan mercilessly, chanting and jeering with every possession. But instead of folding, Jordan thrived on the hostility. Every taunt, every foul, and every glare from Ewing or Oakley only sharpened his focus. To him, the Garden wasn't enemy territory. It was a proving ground. By 1989 and 1990, their clashes were no longer just regular season matchups. Every meeting carried playoff-level intensity. Hard fouls became commonplace, and trash talk escalated into open confrontations. Even when the Bulls weren't facing the Knicks in the postseason, their games felt like wars of attrition. The Knicks were determined to wear Jordan down physically, but all they managed to do was fuel his fire. These battles laid the foundation for what would become one of the most hostile rivalries in NBA history. It wasn't just about wins or losses anymore. It was about pride, toughness, and the unshakable will of a superstar who refused to be intimidated. Jordan didn't just want to beat the Knicks, he wanted to dominate them, to turn their home court into his stage and their defiance into his motivation. What truly set this early period apart was how personal it became. Each meeting felt like a statement, not just for Jordan but for Chicago. He relished silencing the Garden crowd, answering every hard foul with a tougher shot, every glare with a smirk that infuriated Knicks players even more. His competitive fire thrived on these moments, and by the close of 1990, it was clear. This was no ordinary matchup. This was a collision of wills that would only grow fiercer with time. War at Madison Square Garden. When the 1990s arrived, the rivalry between Michael Jordan and the Knicks erupted into full-scale war. The Bulls were ascendant, hungry for championships, and the Knicks were determined to be the wall that stopped them. Madison Square Garden became more than just an arena. It was a cauldron of hostility where every possession felt like life or death. The Knicks' strategy was clear. punished Jordan every time he touched the ball. Players like Charles Oakley and Anthony Mason delivered bone-rattling hits, while John Starks snarled and jawed relentlessly. Each encounter turned into a physical chess match, with the Knicks daring Jordan to fight through their gauntlet of fouls and intimidation. Jordan responded the only way he knew how, with brilliance. He carved through double teams, hit impossible fadeaways, and elevated his game in ways that stunned even his harshest critics. His performances at the Garden became legendary, silencing jeers with breathtaking plays that sucked the air out of the building. The louder the boos, the sharper his edge. Playoff series between the Bulls and Knicks in 1992 and 1993 epitomized their feud. Every game was a grind, low scores, brutal defense, and tempers boiling over. The 1992 semifinals saw Jordan dismantle New York with ruthless efficiency, but the 1993 series turned nastier, with Starks famously dunking over Horace Grant and Jordan, a rare moment the Garden erupted at Jordan's expense. But Jordan's response was swift and merciless. In Game 5 of that series, with the Bulls down 0-2, Jordan erupted for 54 points, torching the Knicks and reclaiming control of the series. His smirk after draining clutch shots in front of the hostile crowd became the image of his dominance, a reminder that he relished their hatred. The battles weren't just physical, they were psychological. Knicks coach Pat Riley devised schemes to trap Jordan, forcing the ball out of his hands, but even then, his presence bent the game to his will. Every Bulls possession felt like a showdown, Jordan against 5 defenders, fueled by defiance. By the mid-90s, these wars had taken on mythic status. The Knicks couldn't stop Jordan, but they pushed him to his limits, forcing him to summon greatness again and again. To Jordan, conquering Madison Square Garden wasn't just about basketball. It was about dominance, pride, and leaving no doubt who ruled the NBA. If there was one moment that defined Jordan's dominance over the Knicks, it was the dunk. In the 1991 playoffs, Michael Jordan drove baseline, rose above Patrick Ewing, and threw down a thunderous dunk that echoed through Madison Square Garden. It wasn't just 2 points. It was a statement, a symbolic declaration that no matter how hard New York fought, Jordan would always rise higher. The rivalry's intensity only grew from there. By 1993, tempers boiled over. Hard fouls escalated into shoving matches, and heated exchanges became routine. One infamous clash saw Charles Oakley and Scottie Pippen exchanging blows while Jordan stared down Ewing, their rivalry burning brighter than ever. The Garden crowd reveled in every skirmish, feeding an atmosphere that felt more like a boxing match than basketball. Jordan thrived under this chaos. He wasn't just beating the Knicks, he was humiliating them. In March 1995, shortly after his return from baseball, Jordan delivered his legendary double nickel game. 55 points in the Garden, capped with a game-winning assist to Bill Wennington. Knicks fans watched helplessly as Jordan once again turned their arena into his personal showcase. What made these moments sting even more for New York was the personal edge. Jordan relished trash talk, famously mocking John Starks after key plays and exchanging icy words with Ewing mid-game. His ability to dominate physically and mentally left the Knicks infuriated and broken. The rivalry even spilled into near brawls. One altercation saw Derek Harper and JoJo English fighting near the stands, dragging players and referees into the fray. Every Bulls-Knicks showdown carried the risk of chaos, and fans loved every second of it. The league fined players, referees handed out technicals, but nothing could cool the temperature of these clashes. For Jordan, each hostile night in New York became fuel. His swagger grew with every dagger jumper, every silenced crowd, and every defeated Knick. The Knicks could bloody him, foul him, and frustrate him, but they couldn't stop him. Each humiliation he delivered wasn't just about winning, it was about crushing their spirit in front of their own fans. By the late 90s, Knicks players admitted the psychological toll Jordan had inflicted. Patrick Ewing later confessed that no matter how much they pushed, Jordan always found another gear. Reporters marveled at how he turned every slight into motivation, building drama that television audiences couldn't look away from. National headlines called these clashes basketball warfare, capturing how brutal and captivating they had become. Fans still talk about those nights. The deafening noise of the Garden, the tension so thick it felt ready to snap, and the feeling that you were witnessing history every time Jordan stepped on the floor. His battles with New York didn't just build his legend, they became an essential part of it, showcasing his relentless drive, his ability to embrace pressure, and his taste for the dramatic. In Madison Square Garden, under the harsh lights and relentless pressure, Michael Jordan forged some of the most iconic chapters of his career. And every Knicks loss added another brick to the unshakable wall of his legend. By the mid-1990s, the rivalry between Michael Jordan and the Knicks had transcended basketball. It had become personal warfare. Every meeting carried a weight of history, resentment, and defiance. Jordan was no longer simply the best player in the league, he was a man on a mission, determined to break the spirit of New York's proudest warriors. Jordan fed on the animosity. He relished every jeer from the Garden crowd, every glare from Patrick Ewing, and every shove from Charles Oakley. To him, the Knicks were more than rivals, they were fuel. Every game became an opportunity to prove that no defense, no scheme, and no amount of physical punishment could slow him down. The physical toll was immense, but it only sharpened Jordan's resolve. His training intensified, his focus deepened, and each clash with New York seemed to push him toward greater heights. Teammates recalled how he circled Knicks matchups on the calendar, approaching them like battles to be won at any cost. For Jordan, triumph over the Knicks wasn't just about advancing in the playoffs, it was about domination. He wanted to dismantle them piece by piece to leave no doubt. In crucial moments, he thrived. Fadeaway jumpers over outstretched arms, explosive drives through double teams, and cold-blooded daggers that silenced the Garden. Even off the court, the rivalry simmered. Post-game press conferences became stages for subtle digs. Jordan's smirk, his clipped answers when asked about the Knicks, spoke volumes. He didn't just beat them, he made it clear that he enjoyed it. This relentless fire forged some of Jordan's most iconic playoff performances. His ability to channel hostility into excellence turned the Knicks into unwilling co-stars in his legend. Fans came to expect the inevitable. When the Bulls faced New York, Jordan would rise to the moment and deliver brilliance. By conquering the Knicks again and again, Jordan's hatred became triumph. The Garden's boos transformed into backhanded respect, even admiration. Patrick Ewing himself would later admit that Jordan's ferocity forced them to be better, even as it crushed their dreams. These clashes defined an era where basketball felt raw, emotional, and brutally human. Media outlets ran constant features on the rivalry, analyzing every stare down and heated exchange. Teammates described how Jordan used these games to inspire everyone around him, demanding they match his intensity. Former Bulls like Steve Kerr remembered the locker room buzzing before Knicks matchups, knowing Jordan would set the tone with his words and his fire. Writers captured the imagery of a lone superstar against an entire city, and it only amplified his aura. And in that crucible, Michael Jordan didn't just win games, he cemented his myth as the unstoppable force who thrived on animosity and turned hatred into fuel for greatness. In the end, Jordan's rivalry with the Knicks became more than a series of games. It became a defining chapter in basketball history. The intensity, the hostility, and the sheer drama transformed each clash into a spectacle, cementing his reputation as a competitor who thrived under fire. The Knicks pushed Jordan to levels few had seen before. Their physicality demanded that he evolve, shaping his mid-range game and signature fadeaway jumper. Every hostile night in New York refined his skill and hardened his mindset, forging a player who seemed invincible under pressure. For the Knicks, their constant battles left scars. Players like Patrick Ewing admitted years later that facing Jordan was both infuriating and inspiring. Even in defeat, they knew they had forced greatness from him, and in doing so, they became permanent fixtures in his story.
And right then, he was the best, so you definitely I wanted to beat him.
The media immortalized these wars, replaying dunks, fights, and dagger shots endlessly. Madison Square Garden, once the Knicks' fortress, became a theater for Jordan's most iconic performances, etching his name into its lore as if he were one of their own. Today, when fans speak of Jordan's legacy, they speak of championships, MVPs, and those unforgettable nights against New York. The hatred, the tension, and the triumph created not just a rivalry, but a legend. For Michael Jordan, conquering the Knicks wasn't simply about winning games. It was about defining what greatness truly looks like under the brightest lights and the fiercest opposition. The story of Michael Jordan versus the New York Knicks is more than just highlights and statistics. It's a saga of willpower, defiance, and legacy. In every clash at Madison Square Garden, the stakes felt larger than life. Fans didn't just witness games, they witnessed theatre, where hatred and brilliance collided under the brightest lights. Jordan's battles with the Knicks showcased the essence of competition. They reminded the world why sports captivate us. The raw emotion, the personal vendettas, the unforgettable moments that feel etched into history. For Jordan, these games weren't obstacles, they were fuel. For the Knicks, they were painful lessons wrapped in respect. Even decades later, echoes of this rivalry remain. Younger fans still watch the dunk, the double nickel, and those fierce playoff duels as proof of an era when one player ruled the NBA with unmatched fire. And Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, still carries the memory of nights when its loudest boos became the backdrop for basketball immortality. This was more than basketball. This was rivalry at its purest. A clash that forged a legend and defined what greatness looks like when pressure, pride, and hatred converge. Jordan didn't just beat the Knicks, he turned their challenge into the stage that cemented his place as the game's ultimate icon. If you enjoyed this deep dive into NBA history, subscribe to Game 7 Stories for more legendary rivalries, untold tales, and iconic moments from basketball's greatest era.